just let. Today we've got Geshe Nicholas Vreeland, also known as Rato Khenpo Geshe and Geshe Tibetan. He's the abbot of Rato monastery in Mongol Tibetan colony. So he's the first Westerner to be appointed the abbot of one of the more important Buddhist monasteries. And Vreeland is also the editor of New York Times bestseller An Open Heart. He's also, interestingly, a photographer, but he humbly describes himself as an amateur photographer. He founded Photos for Rato, from which is a series of fundraisers held in several countries, and the sales from which went to into the expansion of Rato Monastery. So we'll talk about, among other things, his recent exhibition titled Trees of Dharamsala, which at the other space, which is right behind us. So, okay, thank you for doing the interview.
Thank you.
You've mentioned your passion for photography from an early age. So, given your upbringing, like you grew up in the West, and then and your encounter with Buddhism, has your view on photography, how you do photography, has it changed after your encounter with Buddhism?
Probably, in that as a Buddhist, especially as a Buddhist monk and member of a monastery, I don't have to work as a photographer and try to support myself. I'm a monk and I take pictures out of my love for photography. There are photographers who will meditate and then go out into the world and try to have their meditative state of mind influence the way they are photographing. And they try to find elements within the world that reflect what they feel and what they have brought about by their meditation. I am not one of those. My interest is in looking at what's before me and photographing that. I believe that whatever my feelings, whatever my sensitivities are, will naturally express themselves in my photograph. But I shouldn't be concerned with that. I should be concerned with creating an image that works.
When we talk about photography, like, are there parallels between the two? Because photography is somewhat modern, and then like is seen as something modern, and then Buddhism is seen as something in a way traditional. But and His Holiness asks us to sort of, and he tries to like bring the two into a harmonious union. So are there any parallels between the two?
You know, I think that the parallels that we can bring between something like photography and one's Buddhist practice are parallels that we as individuals bring. Photography is a means of expression, self-expression. Of course, a professional photographer who has to go out and photograph what's happening in the world in order to bring information to people who don't have access to that. Let's say a war photographer, a photographer who goes to an earthquake area and brings images to people for them to see what's happening. That's what I would call professional photojournalism. What I do is take pictures to express myself, or take pictures out of my love for photography. Now, how might that be in harmony with Buddhism? Well, the motivation with which I do it, I am a believer that as we master a technique, such as photography, it can be anything. It can be writing, it can be, I suppose that for an actor, or it would be acting. The more we master our technique, the more we are able to express ourselves in a sort of natural way. And once we are expressing ourselves, then whatever our feelings are will come out in our artwork or our poetry or our acting or whatever the discipline is that we're engaging in. So it is the individual who brings the parallel or brings the harmony between Buddhism and the means of expression.
So about the exhibition, so you've titled it Trees of Dharamsala, and it's all about trees. Why just trees?
So I was asked by the owner of this gallery, Julian Urban, to do an exhibition. And I've been here in Dharamsala for the last year plus, and I've been photographing. And I thought that it would be interesting to choose photographs that I had taken recently during this time in Dharamsala, and photographs that were of subjects that were accessible to everyone. And so I chose photographs that I've taken in the last 3-4 months, and I chose the theme of trees because they're there for all of us to admire, to enjoy, and to maybe photograph or draw or write about or whatever. So that's where that came from.
Oh, like they're also all in black and white. And is there a particular reason why it's all black and white?
So I'm of that generation, or let's say age, of photographers who was brought up with black and white. Back when I started, which was in the 60s, all one really did was black and white. That's all one could afford to do. That's all. There were some people who took color photographs, and they would usually have to be developed in a lab. Black and white you could do yourself. Black and white was the sort of accessible medium. Black and white, I consider color photography to be far more difficult than black and white. When you work in black and white, you are taking whatever is before you, which is transferred into simply tones of gray from black to white, and you are working at putting those tonal elements together. You are bringing them into harmony to make a photograph that has some kind of power, strength. When you work in color, not only do you have to deal with the tonal range, you have to deal with colors. Far more difficult. To be a masterful color photographer is very difficult.
So I got a chance to look at the photographs, but maybe it's just me, but I was only able to see just the barks of the trees, and then basically I failed to see what's really special about this particular tree, and then this particular tree. What is it about the trees on the display here, the pictures of them? What is it about them that were, I don't know.
See, I don't necessarily say when I look at a tree, I see elements that I think could come together as a photograph. And I have to find the place. It's not that I'm looking for some kind of a soul or some kind of element of treeness that I'm trying to photograph, because I don't actually happen to believe that exists. But I do try to, as I said before, put together the compositional elements to make a strong picture. So I do find the place where the trunk, the background, the leaves, the branches, the ground, the white, the black, the grays, all come together to make something strong, to make something that I feel has a certain dynamic. And that's what I photograph. And I do that whether it's trees, whether it's, if I come here and photograph the setup before me here, if I photograph you, there's you taken here, there's you taken with the column behind you here, there's you taken with the trees behind you, there's the amount of you that I photograph, there's the light on you. All of those things come together to make a picture that expresses you. And I did that with trees. I could have done it, as I say, with people. I have lots of portraits of people, but I chose trees just to maybe inspire people and realize that anyone can have access to these beautiful living things that provide us with the oxygen that we need to survive and are there for us to admire and thank.
It'd be interesting to now, go take a look at them one more time after you said it. Now I like changing the topic a little bit. As I said before, you were the first Westerner to be appointed and the abbot of one of the more important Buddhist monasteries. Which means when you first encountered Buddhism, you were, in a sort of a way, an outsider.
Well, Buddhism, the Tibetan word chirupa and nangpa. So in that sense, I was an outsider. I was brought up as a Christian and at some point became interested in Buddhism. And so maybe at that point I became a nangpa. I don't know, you'll have to decide.
Culturally and spiritually, in a way, you were an outsider first, but so how did you navigate that?
How did I navigate that? Well, so the concept of outsider and insider is an awkward one, let us say. I think that the wonderful thing about the world today and the modern world today is that we really do have the opportunity to choose what we believe, to scrutinize and decide what is true, and thereby develop a certain belief in it, faith in it, whatever. I did that in New York City, studying with Rato Khenpo Geshe, and coming to attend teachings of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And in that process, began to see more and more clearly a validity, a logical basis for the Buddhist system, the Buddhist philosophy. And that led me to wish to devote my life to studying and practicing as a Buddhist and as a Buddhist monk. And that's what led me to come here to India to join a monastery and study formally.
His Holiness, when he appointed you the abbot of one of the more important monasteries, he also gave you a special duty, in a sense, to bridge the Tibetan tradition in the Western world. So, how do you think that is going?
Well, as the Western monk in the monastery that I belong to, Rato Khenpo, and I am, of course, bringing to the task my background, my experiences, my belief in certain ways of doing things. And so, let's say, following the law. Let's say following procedures for accounting. Let's say following having an architect design a building rather than just doing it the way everyone else does. Those are experiences that I had from the West that I was able to bring to the task of running Rato Khenpo. In terms of bringing the extraordinary knowledge, the extraordinarily profound experience that I have had living in a Tibetan Buddhist monastic community, and sharing that with the West. I think that those are the two ways in which I've been able to fulfill His Holiness's instruction to somehow create that kind of communication or bridge. His Holiness has asked that I involve myself in speaking in the West about his belief in the importance of secular ethics, his belief in the importance of introducing secular ethical concepts in education from a very, very young age in order to begin to transform our society into a more ethically aware one.
Okay, so my next question is a bit, in a way, related to this one. So this Buddhist master called Lin Chi. He's an ancient Buddhist scholar. So he's called Lin Chi, and there's a koan written after him. It's so in the koan he says, in order to achieve liberation, whatever you encounter, whether within or without, kill it at once. So like, even if you meet the Buddha, kill him. So in a way, this is very interesting to me personally. Also, like, because I don't know how to think about it, so maybe I can get the answer out for you. Sam Harris, he's also he's a neuroscientist. Maybe you know him, but he, I think, studied with Mingyur Rinpoche and his father. So he interprets it quite literally, that like if we meet the Buddha, we should actually kill him in a way, because of he argues that it would be much more, it would have much more to offer without idol worship. And then quote that the wisdom of Buddha is currently trapped within the religion of Buddhism.
That last sentence, what did you say?
Yeah, the wisdom of Buddha is current.
Trapped.
Yeah. So I don't know how to think about that. So, what do you think about it?
So that which we are working at, I wouldn't say killing, but one could say killing, is a belief in self. It is my belief in my inherent existence, my intrinsic existence. It is my belief in my independent existence that leads me to feel that I'm the center of the universe, that leads me to feel justified in imposing my ways, that leads me to want, that leads me to get angry. All of my afflictions, my pride, my jealousy, all of those things come from this belief in me. We have to dissolve that. You could say we have to kill that. The trouble with the idea of killing it is that we will discover as we look for it that it doesn't exist. There's nothing to kill. But the process of being ready to attack it is important. And it's not just me that I have to work at dissembling. It's my perception of the parts that make me up, as well as the outside world. I'm a photographer. There's great danger in developing attachment to photographic equipment. There's great danger in your developing attachment to, let's say, the iPad sitting on your lap. We all sort of view these things as objects of desire, and we imbue them with maybe more of an existence than they actually possess. If I look among the parts of the camera before me, I'm not going to find anything that is a Fuji, or I don't know what that one is. However, what makes me attached to it or grasp at it is some belief in its intrinsic existence. And so the quality of existence that one would wish to kill is that belief in its having some kind of, let's say, independent self. So that's what we have to work at killing. That's what we have to work at destroying. And as we work at destroying our attachment to the outside things, we're really working at destroying our attachment to our sense of self.
Is it is it possible that the wisdom of, as he said here, like the wisdom of Buddha is currently trapped in the religion of Buddhism? Like, is it possible to just only learn Buddhism in a way, like without faith and belief in the religion part of Buddhism? Is it possible?
Let's put it this way. We can talk about Buddhism as some sort of outside concept or whatever. What's important is my own individual practice. I am responsible for the way I behave, the way I think. I have to work on myself to be a little less self-centered and a little more caring for others. That's my work. Everyone else will benefit from doing the same thing, but they have to do that work. Now, that's not I'm not sure that that's I think that's the essence of Buddhism. And that's what we have to concentrate on. Giving it a name and talking about temples and, what would you call, organizations and things like that. That's extraneous. The important thing is the way I behave. The important thing is the training that I work on in order to diminish my selfish tendencies and work at developing my concern for and responsibility towards others.
Thank you for that. That's a very interesting way to think about it. When we talk about Buddhism, like there's also a part that, in a way, we talk about Buddhist philosophy, and then like the science of it, and then the modern science, and then it's quite, especially when we talk about Buddhist psychology in a way, and then there's neuroscience and modern psychology in a way. So how do you think all of these can mesh together? And I mean, there are very deep insights and deep and profound insights from Buddhist psychology. Do you think there's a future for it, like for Buddhist psychology and psychology in the modern science tradition, and then neuroscience to sort of build something more profound by coming together?
So I think that there is a danger in working towards developing links before they have been established on their own. I think that the neuroscientists have to work on their neuroscience, and the Buddhist practitioners have to work on their Buddhist practice. And as they do so, they can speak to each other, they can share their knowledge with each other, and eventually we may find connections. But to actually create connections that are flimsy, in order to create connections, and in any way compromise the integrity of the Buddhism or of the neuroscience, I think is a danger. It's sort of a new age danger. I think it's far more important that you really work at developing communication and focus on the individual disciplines and let the harmony develop in a totally natural way.
during the opening night of the exhibition, you said you prefer, although you loved the hands-on approach of developing the photographs, the films, but you prefer in a way the digital photography, which is much more prevalent now compared to the film photography.
So photography, like everything, has evolved. And there was a time when you had to develop film. Film was a celluloid with an emulsion on it that was sensitive to light that you put in your camera, and that's what captured what you were aiming the camera at. You had to develop the film in a pitch black environment, and then you took the film once it was dry and you put it in an enlarger, and you enlarged it, and you processed the piece of paper on which you had enlarged it in chemicals, and the process was a wonderful one. I used to really enjoy. I would spend all night long working in the darkroom. Today, we have cameras that don't need film. We have cameras that have not a set, what we called ASA, but is now ISO, which is a set sensitivity to light. We can vary it. You asked me about black and white. I have a camera that only takes black and white because I want to limit myself to black and white. That's a choice I've made. Most cameras take color, black and white. You can vary the colors however you want to. You can work on your image on the computer. You can print them out on whatever paper or whatever material you want to. The possibilities are wonderful. I happen to think, embrace the modern way. Now that the technical aspects of digital photography have become so good, why not go with it? That's my feeling. And traveling, it is so nice not to have to transport film. It is so nice to be able to go through security at airports without all the problems that we had in the past. So I think it's wonderful, digital photography. I loved the old system, and I love the new system.
Do you think the younger generation is getting robbed of that hands-on approach, that experience of film photography?
Do I think what?
The young generation.
Yeah.
So we don't get to actually experience that part because most of the cameras we sort of use, or I get to use, are digital cameras. So do you think...
Do I think that one loses something from not having the sort of original experiences? Maybe, but I think that one gains so much by making use of the new technology that we have available. I mean, methods, all technical aspects of our lives has evolved over years, decades, centuries. And of course, if you go back to the original and see how things worked, you'll have an appreciation for the technology. However, I think that we can do perfectly well using modern technology.
Thank you, Geshe. Thank you for doing the interview.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Me too.
Thank you, everyone.